If you're a senior or you're helping aging parents, there will come a moment when you start to ask bigger questions. Questions like, when is the right time to move? What are our living options? How do we make decisions before a crisis forces them on us? I'm Matthew Haviland with the Prompt team at Keller Williams Realty Atlantic Shore, and today I want to walk you through something that I believe is incredibly important. It's planning for the future before decisions become urgent. This presentation is called Senior Living Options 3.0, and it's designed to help you understand the full range of senior living choices, from aging in place to downsizing to 55 and over communities to independent living and assisted living. Now, this is not about selling a home. It's about protecting your quality of life, your independence, and your peace of mind. So whether you're thinking about making a move soon or a few years from now, or you're simply gathering information, my hope is that this gives you clarity and helps you move forward with confidence. Welcome to Senior Living Options 3.0. My name is Matthew Haviland. I'm a senior real estate specialist with Keller Williams Realty Atlantic Shore, a member of the Keller Williams real estate planner community. Excited to present this information to you today. And my mission is to help people achieve the highest quality of life through buying and selling real estate. And we help people build, protect, and transfer wealth. And that's part of what we do in our mission while preventing family disputes. So let's jump in and give you an overview of what we're going to cover next. So what we're going to cover is proactive and reactive perspectives. How will I know when it's time to move? What are my living options? What should I do with my home? What can I do with my rental properties? How to protect your home and your rentals? How can I pass on a legacy now? And when should I start planning? So recently I got a call from a senior living community. They introduced me to Mary, who had just moved into the community. Her health had taken a turn for the worse, and she really needed to get into that community right away. In order to provide for her financial requirements, she had to sell the home quickly. So I get calls like that quite often. I also get a lot of calls that are, unfortunately, the loved one has passed away, and now the family is left to not only sell a home, but also sort through years and sometimes even decades of personal belongings that are left in the home. So it's a lot of responsibility for the family to take care of at a very difficult time. So there are two types of perspectives. We have proactive and reactive. The good news is that you have a choice. So who do you choose to be? So let me give you some examples of some proactive clients of mine that I've helped. So Carol and Nate sold their home in Linwood. They had recently retired. They didn't want to do the upkeep of the yard, the maintenance, a larger lot, the trees and everything that had to be managed there. And so they chose to move to a 55 and over community where all that maintenance was taken care of for them. For Marion and Walt, similarly, they had a split level home, beautiful split level home in Northfield, and just too many steps. They were at a point in their life where they really needed to get everything on one level, and they were able to sell their home in Northfield and purchase a new home that was everything on one level, very easy and accessible for them, and in a 55 and over community also, so all their lawn care, the snow removal was also taken care of them, so very low maintenance lifestyle. I also want to share a story of my aunt who recently lived home alone, and she got very sick to the point that she passed out when she was in the bathroom. She couldn't get to her phone to be able to call anyone for help, and one of her groups and clubs that she's a part of, the ladies noticed that she wasn't there for the meeting she was supposed to be there, so they went to check on her and they found her there in the bathroom. Fortunately, she was okay, but it had been almost 48 hours. She had been laying there with no one there to help her. And I don't want that to happen to anyone else. So that's really the advantage of having that proactive approach is let's try to think about things before they get to that point. So how do you know when it's time to move? It's a great question. Is your home too large now that the kids are gone? Is your home or your yard too much work to maintain? Are you tired of cooking and cleaning? I think this is a big one too. So tired of cooking and cleaning, that's a lot of work. Does your home have too many steps? Are you living alone and concerned about security? Would you like to make your own decisions about when and where you'll move to next? So what are your living options? There's a couple of different options here I want to review with you. Aging in place or at home with loved ones, downsizing to a smaller house, a townhouse or a condo, 55 and over communities, and retirement communities. The first community I want to talk to you about is CCRCs, which are continuing care retirement communities. They typically have an entry fee that's required, and the benefit there is all levels of care are provided. So you can start with kind of an independent living, almost like an apartment. Maybe you have some meals provided, and then they can go all the way into assisted living to skilled nursing, even memory care. So everything under one roof or in one facility, you'd never have to move again. All the levels of care needed are provided in this type of community. It's typically a life care arrangement, so they're agreeing to care for you for your lifetime. Now, there are some financial requirements. There's usually a very large upfront entry fee required. So these particular communities don't work for everyone because of that very high financial investment needed up front. And there are some health benchmark assessments, so health has to be at a certain level in order to be able to get into the community. Now, let's talk about retirement communities. We have a couple of options within that category of retirement communities. So let's talk about that. Independent living. So those are for people who are relatively healthy and maybe need a little extra care, or they want to have that security of having someone check on them, of being able to have meals and some level of care provided. Assisted living takes it a little step further. Maybe they do need a little bit more help. And then there's also a skilled nursing facility. That's a little more in depth. When you have some medical needs that need to be taken care of, having that medical help available to you is excellent. My grandmother, Edith, she lived to 99 years old, and she lived for a long time by herself after my grandfather had passed. Then she moved into an assisted living community and eventually into a skilled nursing care towards the end of her life. But it was a great experience for her to really be well cared for during that time period. And then I want to talk about memory care. And memory care sometimes can be within these facilities, like we talked about the CCRC, or within assisted living community. They may have a separate section for memory care. Typically that's a little more secure. So we want to make sure that the residents there in that community are safe. They're not able to get lost. So there's definitely some excellent level of care within that memory care environment. It's a very safe environment. I have a story regarding memory care. So my Aunt Ruthie, great Aunt Ruthie, was a lovely woman. She was athletic. She played tennis. She played golf. Just was great to be around, great personality. Unfortunately, she got into a car accident, and my family had some concerns. So my wife and my mother-in-law went to check on her one day, and they found out that she was in the dead of winter in her house alone with no heat. And we realized, okay, something's wrong here. We quickly realized that her memory and her memory had gone downhill very quickly, and there were some clues along the way that we missed. Fortunately, we were able to get her out of that environment into a safe environment, and that's really important to have that care for those loved ones who are experiencing difficulty with memory care. Now let's talk about aging in place options. So one option is family taking care of family. We have home care and home health care and adult daycare services. So family taking care of family can be a blessing, or it can be a burden, and it can really stress. It can create a lot of stress on a family. So if you're thinking of this option, you really need to have a conversation with your family about this plan and ask them, would you be willing to take care of me? Because you might have an idea, oh yeah, my family's going to take care of me, but they might have other plans or may not really be in a position where they feel that they can take care of you properly. So you want to have that conversation about your family before you assume that they're just going to take care of you. And adult daycare is a great option. So what this is typically the adult daycare facilities would come and pick up a loved one, have them there for the day. They have activities, food, meals, games, and bring them back at the end of the day. So this allows a family member to be able to go to work, but still know that their loved one is really taken care of well. And we have some great ones in the area that do this. Now let's talk about home care. And home care is more of, I call it a social model. So that's typically private hiring. It's companion services. It's personal care, bathing, transferring, toileting, and it's limited health care. So checking vital signs, things like that, checking temperature, meal preparation sometimes is included with that. That'll help with meal prep, with cleanup, and typically some light housekeeping like vacuuming, dusting, sweeping, and helping with mobility if you need help with walking or moving. And sometimes they'll also include or have available transportation services. So whether you need to get to the grocery store or to doctor's visits, that would be part of the services with home care. Now, home health care is more of a clinical model, and home health care includes therapy such as physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and that would require a skilled nurse. A registered nurse typically would be involved with the home healthcare side of things. So Medicare reimbursements do require someone to be homebound. They require a physician prescription. They typically last for 100 days per specified health event, and long-term care can cover that care, but you do need to check with your provider to make sure. And it does need to be a licensed agency for home health care. So here's the big question. How much does this all cost? Okay, home care can be up to $24 to $30 per hour, and home health care usually is $29 all the way up to $75 per hour, depending on the level of care that you need. 24-hour care is possible, and that can run sometimes $15,000 to $20,000 a month, again, depending on the level of care that you need. And the needs and costs will increase over time, depending on the needs of the client. If you're getting 24-hour care for a long period of time, it tends to be not cost effective, depending on the level of care that you need. How do I protect my home and my rentals? You can keep it in a trust. maintain insurance, continue maintenance, secure the perimeter, install motion sensors and alarms, and check smoke detectors. What should I do with my home if you do need to move, let's say from your current home? You could rent your home, you could pass it to a family member, you could sell your home, or you could leave it vacant. Now, renting can have challenges like problem tenants or maintenance or upkeep of the property. Passing it along to a family member is something to think about. Who do you want to bless with that property? Leaving it vacant, well, that's kind of the worst option because you really don't get any return on that investment if you're keeping the property empty. What can I do with my rental properties? If you've got rental property, you can do nothing. You can keep it vacant. You can allow a loved one to live there. You can rent it. You can use it as a second home. You can do a 1031 exchange for more cash flow or a 1031 exchange to support family. Now, allowing loved ones to live there can create a problem. I'm going to share an example with you. We had a woman contact us who was a trustee for her mother. Her mother moved to an assisted living community and the daughter ran out of money to take care of her. And now she really needed to sell that house in order to provide for the finances needed to care for mom. Now, the problem is mom let her son live in the property in the house, and now the son and the brother, he doesn't want to leave. So now she's in the process of having to evict the brother so that she can sell the house to pay for the care for mom. So it's a very difficult situation to be in, and you do want to try to be cautious and avoid that. Are you looking for the complete solution? This is something that we offer. So that's downsizing, decluttering, removal of unwanted items, repairs and improvements, cleaning and staging, guiding you through the sale of your home, and protecting and advocating for you. And that's really the work that I do. Now, we work with a member of the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers, we call NASM, and that helps with all these areas and more. And we do work with other vendors who can help with repairs and updates as needed if you do need to sell your home. Before you sell, it's very important to understand the tax ramifications. If you're selling your personal residence, well, what qualifies as a personal residence? It means you owned and lived in the home 2 out of the last 5 years. There are some capital gains tax exemptions for your personal residence. So individuals can take up to $250,000, couples can take up to $500,000 tax exempt. So let's say a couple bought a home in Ocean City for $100,000 in 1975. Today that home is worth $1 million. They will be exempt from $500,000 in capital gains tax as a couple, but they still have to pay $400,000 in tax liability. Now, if you're selling an investment property, a little bit different. So long-term capital gains tax, it's taxed at 1.4% to 10.75% depending on your income level here in New Jersey, up to 20% with federal taxes. And if your adjusted gross income is over $400,000, you'll add an additional 3.8%. And so you do have some options. You can defer capital gains tax with a 1031 exchange. And remember, you always want to check with your CPA before making any major decisions like this. Now, let's say, for example, we have 30% capital gains tax. In our example, the couple that sold their home in Ocean City, they have a $400,000 tax liability. So that's approximately $120,000 in capital gains taxes would be due. Now, 1031 exchange would allow that couple to sell their home, invest into another investment property, and not have to pay that capital gains tax. I want to give you some tips to downsize and declutter. We use the SORT method. That's sell, offer, retain, or toss. Ask yourself, do I love it? When will I use it again? Where will it fit in my new home? And this can be an overwhelming thought, especially many of our clients, they've been in the home for decades. And our senior move manager can help you make this process simple and easy. I want to talk about blessing your family with a pre-inheritance plan. So let's say you're selling your investment property. You can do a 1031 exchange by purchasing a replacement property for a loved one. The loved one receives the property upon your passing with no capital gains tax. So we call this a stepped up cost basis, and this can significantly enhance the long-term benefits of a 1031 exchange. So at death, the loved one would receive the property at its current market value, eliminating prior capital gains tax and depreciation recapture for income tax purposes. So this strategy allows investors to defer taxes during their lifetime, to grow wealth through exchanges, and then potentially pass that along to family members with a very minimal tax impact. So let me give you an example of how this might work. In this example here, mom and dad bought an apartment building years ago for $700,000. It's now worth $4 million. Dad passed, and mom doesn't want it anymore. Dad managed it and he repaired it, did all the work and the maintenance on the property. The CPA said, don't sell it because the capital gains tax is going to be $1 million. Now we asked her, do you need the income from this property to sustain the life that you desire? And she said, no, I don't need the income from that. If you could bless your family, would you? She said, yes, yeah, I would. So, who will get the property? So we asked a lot of questions to find out who would be getting the property. And we said, why wait? So we came up with a plan for her to bless her family. And so this is what she did. did. She sold the $4 million apartment building and then let the kids choose each 4 replacement properties. So let's say they each got $1 million budget, they can choose a replacement property. And that removes that family dispute from when mom passes. Now who gets that property? How is the money distributed? The kids get to choose which properties they want based on where they're living and what their lifestyle is, and really avoid that capital gains tax, that $1 million tax that potentially would have had to have been paid. So what happened here, I'll give you the example. We got George here. He was able to purchase that home in Las Vegas. Now Lucy lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, and $1 million doesn't get you very much there. So she was able to contribute $1 million of her own finances, combine that with mom's money from the 1031 exchange, purchase a $2 million property, and eventually that will become her property and legacy from her mom. So you can see how the transfer of wealth can really create a legacy that can bless your family. Is there a fight now? Well, no, there's no fight over the property. Is there a burden for mom? No, she's happy that she was able to bless the kids in her lifetime and be able to see how that's affecting them. So money is good for the good that it does. And we're on a mission to keep money in families. But why wait? Why wait when you can bless your family now? So when should I start planning? The answer is now. The best time to start planning is always at the present moment. And you can schedule your free strategy session today with me. I'm willing to donate an hour of my time at the benefit of you and your family with no cost or obligation. There's 2 guarantees in life. We will die, and the date of death of the last surviving spouse is the date of that transfer of wealth. And you can choose whether you want to be proactive or passive. And I hope you choose proactive, and I'd be glad to help you. So if there's one takeaway I hope you get from Senior Living Options 3.0, it's this: the best time to plan is before you have to. There's no single right answer when it comes to senior living, only the option that best fits your health, your finances, your family, and the way you want to live. My role isn't just to help people buy or sell homes. I help seniors and their families understand their options early so transitions are thoughtful and not rushed, and decisions are made with confidence instead of stress. So if you're starting to think about your next chapter, whether that's downsizing, exploring a 55 and over community, or simply learning what options exist, I'm happy to be a resource for you. And you can find more information or reach out at promptagents.com/YouTube, and I'll include some helpful links below this video as well. So thank you for spending this time with me. You can watch this video next for the top 5 55+ communities in Atlantic County. God bless you, and I'll see you on the next video.